Emmanuel, they say, look, we had sanctions, the Trump administration, you had 4 years of maximum pressure, and that just didn't work.
Well, there's some truth to it. And the reason why it didn't work is because it was only American sanctions and it wasn't backed by Russian and Chinese sanctions. As a matter of fact, not only didn't the Russians and the Chinese play ball with America, but China signed a special deal with Iran to invest money in Iran. So it is true that as long as the sanctions were only American, they have a very limited capability of pressuring Iran into a better deal. And we see it because the U.S., in fact, has a very limited amount of leverage on Iran precisely because the sanctions are only American and precisely because the Russians and the Chinese did not follow suit. So on this point, the Biden administration does have a point. Of course, it doesn't mean that it should go for any kind of deal, but it is true that sanctions have a limited effect if they're not followed by the other great powers.
Right. So that now leaves the question of what Israel can do given the current set of circumstances.
Look, Israel is not going to be able to tell the Americans or all the great powers what to negotiate with the Iranians. Israel can and should make its position very clear on what it considers unacceptable. What Israel, in my opinion, should be doing, besides making its case very clearly, is also to coordinate with its allies the day after, not only with the United States, but also with major European powers. How to deal with a threshold Iran? Is there going to be a plan B? And I think it's important for Israel not only to make public statements to express its discontent with the emerging agreement, but also to work on the day after with its allies.
All right. Well, certainly Israel has repeatedly said all options are on the table. And when you mention allies, let's also just add its new allies, for example, in the Gulf, especially the UAE and Bahrain and maybe some others
Absolutely.
As well. And the security arrangements, we could see some of those even taking more shape beyond what we've seen until this point now. Dr. Emmanuel Navon, thank you for joining us on The Rundown.